husband was deployed. His residence is where he lives when he's not deployed is in California. So we have a California case. Wife lives in another state. I'm just going to, the state doesn't matter, just lives in another state. I don't want this to be too personal. Wife lives in another state with their child for the last 6 years. So the first thing I said was, well, you guys should file in that state because California doesn't have any jurisdiction over that child because the child hasn't lived here in the last 6 months. And that's kind of, I'm simplifying that, but that's kind of how that would work. And the issue with that, which I explained to him, is that because California doesn't have jurisdiction over the child, there can't be any orders for custody or child support. I've had this happen several times. Not cases that I have filed, but where people have hired me after they filed a California divorce case with their children living with the other spouse in another state. And when we would turn the judgment in for custody, they say the court does not have jurisdiction per the UCCJA. They have not lived here the last 6 months. So no, there can be no custody orders. So that was probably, this happened several times over the years, but the first time that happened, I was like, well, what do I do? Does the divorce case need to be dismissed and filed in the state they live? No. So what I did is I turned in a judgment without the custody and child support. And in those boxes wrote, California does not have jurisdiction over the issue of custody for the following reasons. They haven't lived here for 6 months. See UCCJA, something like that. And they started getting approved. So we haven't had that in a while. But when this guy called, that was the first thing I said, you should file in the other state. And he says, here's the other issue. My wife doesn't want to be the person to initiate the process. And I don't know what the rules are in this other state, but what he said was that the only person who can initiate in this state was the person who lives there. So she'd already said she doesn't want to be the party to initiate. He can't initiate it in that state, so they're forced to file it in California. Would the easy answer be just have her be the petitioner? Yes. But for whatever reason, and I don't get involved in that part of it, she wasn't going to do it. But they're in agreement on everything, which is interesting, right? So I said, okay, fine. Here's what's going to happen then. Yes, I can file it in California, and you can have property division orders, you can have spousal orders, but you can't have custody and you can't have child support. There will be no orders for that. And he said, oh, I think we're going to put together an out of court agreement. And, we've been fine for, I think, a couple of years where they've just been paying support and working, keeping her in the house with the child and so forth. So they're super, super amicable and they're okay not having a custody order. The downside is there's no custody order. So if there are issues, they would have to open a custody case in the state that the child resides, and that would be totally separate from the divorce case. So I thought that was interesting just because the way it came up, and it looks like as long as they're cooperative and all that, I sent them a quote to do their divorce, and as long as they're both, I wanted him to check with her, make sure she's okay having no child support custody orders in their divorce and just having it outside the scope of California court.